Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here, and this one here is a little painting I'm going to call Mountain Rain, and this is on Winsor & Newton 9x12 cold press watercolor paper. And here I'm using what we call the Ron Ranson palette. If you're new to my channel, these are a specific set of 7 colors. Join us over at the Ron Ranson group on Facebook, of which I am one of the admins, and you can learn where the roots to this sort of fast and loose technique has come from and how it's grown and how I've adapted it and how I make it work for me. And the way I make it work for me is by using large brushes and quickly putting in colors such as the blue here, the raw sienna, and quickly dabbing, quick strokes, quick shapes, and keep it fun and keep it loose without using too much detail. And what I'm using here is called the Ron Ranson Hake or Hake brush, as it's pronounced, Japanese brush that is typically made from natural hair like goat hair, and it holds a lot of water. And you can watch some of my beginner videos that show you how to start off with using this particular brush. This particular brush is large, so you do not get caught up in doing small details. That's the beauty of this particular brush. And it holds a lot of water, so you don't keep dipping your brush back into a reservoir of water. And if you start off with the lighter colors and work your way darker, you're not going to be doing a lot of cleaning of the brush. A lot of times if you don't want to mix colors such as yellow and blue, you're doing blue water, you want to wash the brush. But for me, once I stopped washing the brush after every color and just kept certain colors on the brush and dancing around the palette, I found that that turned a corner for me early on in using this brush and having fun and doing this particular technique. So we can zoom in here. I want you to see a little bit of a mountain shape. Just using that straight edge of the brush, you can actually shape this brush to use the corner, the flat edge, and all different ways of using every part of this brush in order to make various different shapes. So you can see here I've made this little mountain shape, just sort of like an upside down V, long V, and distant objects should obviously be lighter. So if you're working from front to back, back to front, more distant objects should be lighter, which means you're going to probably use more water on this brush. So you're going to use a little bit of water or a little bit of paint and more water. And as things generally move closer to you or you move down the page, you're going to be using less and less water, which is going to be coming off of this brush naturally anyways as you move it down the page. Now, of course, I've been known to use fan brushes as well. It's a little trickier with those, but once you get used to this particular brush, the Hake or Hake brush, you'll see that you can pretty much adapt and use nearly any brush, really. A lot of people are familiar with using mops and pointy brushes, and those are great, but I think having this one in your set is a very good way, especially for washes. So if you're used to a round brush, add this one to your arsenal and integrate it. I do have a round brush, and there are things that I would use it for, but for landscapes, I think that a large flat brush is handy to have. Even if you don't use this particular brush, you can use a synthetic. It may not hold as much water, but once you've painted for a long enough time, you could pretty much duplicate. You can use less expensive brushes too, as long as I'm on the subject. They do sell online. You'll find a variety of brushes that look like this one. Some of the differences, though, is that those particular brushes do not have a flat edge. They're not trimmed at the edge. You could trim them, obviously, if you're careful enough. If you put those, maybe use some kind of something to chop off the end with and keep it nice and straight. But you won't have a chiseled edge And of course, some of those brushes, they lose a lot more hair. Another good big brush is the one you can find from Clark. The other watercolor, there's a watercolor artist, Frank Clark, on YouTube. And sadly, he recently passed away, but they are still a business, still a company, and you can buy his brush. And his brush is a very nice brush that you can shape and so forth. I have that one. I got used to this one. I don't use it as much, but it is a good brush. So I've used this brush to do the vegetation. That's the nice thing, is you can kind of frizz up this brush. You can shape it into some points to become like a leaf painting brush. And you can really, really do a lot with it. Now, as I get toward the end, I will bring out other brushes like a fan brush or a sword liner or a liner of some kind. You may need to make small branches, twigs, sticks, etc. Just like I'm doing here, I'm just putting a fine row in here and using the edge of this brush. I like the sword liner because it's fatter at the ferrule end and you can absorb more water into it or hold more water. So there you go. Just some fine details here. I really like this paper, Winsor & Newton cold press, 100% cotton. It's a great paper. This is a pad, so you have to use a palette knife or something similar to separate the sheets. And I'll use it on the pad itself, which is nice because then you don't have to tape or use bull nose to hold with clips down. And of course, I've used the point of this brush to make just little branch things sticking out. This is where you can do the details and where they're fun. Just little sticks and twigs and birds and things like that. But we don't want to get tedious here. We're here to have fun. And we're here to paint in a very, very loose manner. You really have to paint as if you don't care. And in many ways you shouldn't. You're just here to have fun, throw color on the paper and see what happens. This is your adventure. This is your focus of your mind. Take your mind off the daily anxieties and so forth. And this is your chance to express that. And you may only spend 15, 20 minutes doing this, but it's definitely a great way to take your mind off of things. And don't keep going over things. I can't stress that enough. You can, a couple of times, you might want to darken something or whatever, but don't keep going over and over and over things. Kind of let the chips fall where they may, let it dry, put it to the side, and after you've stared at this for 15, 20 minutes, it'll look like everything is wrong. But as soon as you're done, if you kind of look at it or put a mat on it, throw it to the side, look at it the next day. I have them in my living room sometimes, and I'll walk away. When I come back the next day, I look at it with fresh eyes and I think, that's not too bad. And I might have thought it was bad the night before. And sure, early on, I had a couple I ripped up and I threw away. I got frustrated a couple times. But the important thing is to have fun. That's why I'm stressing that to you. Again, shapes. Don't try to paint things. Don't go in thinking I'm going to paint this mountain and I'm going to do every crevasse, I'm going to do a tree, and I'm going to have every branch and every facet of what it looks like. You know, I know people go out there and they say, I'm going to do a tree study. I hate that word study. I didn't like studying when I was in school. I don't want to do a study now. I'm going to go out and I'm going to very loosely paint this thing. This inspired me to paint. I'm going to throw it on the paper, and what I get in the end is art. It's art, and it's a representation of a few minutes that I spent in my life trying to have fun. That's what that thing is. I'm not going to explain it. I'm not going to tell a story behind it, any of that stuff is really not necessary. It's you and the paper and your fun. And when you're done, this paper is a piece of currency that says, I had fun on this planet for 15, 20 minutes, and I enjoyed what I was doing, and it'll show in your paper. And I think you can see that here. And I enjoy I get double enjoyment. You know why? Because I get to make a video and explain to you what I'm doing. And then I hear back that a lot of people saw my video, enjoyed it, and went on to try some painting and had their enjoyment. So a bit of paying it forward and people having a good time. And that's what I like. Now, the fun with the plastic card. Well, the paint is still wet. Take a nice plastic credit card, scrape in some rocks. I love what that does. I cannot do a painting without doing some kind of scraping somewhere. It's just too much fun. It's like driving in your car when it's nice out and not putting the window down. Gotta open the window and breathe in a little bit of fresh air. So I'm anchoring the rocks. Take the fan brush and just put a little dark color underneath the rock. I've seen people doing this, and if you look back at some of my older, go on Instagram, you can see my works going back 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever. And I didn't do it either, but after a while I started doing it, and it looked better. This is a Fumui fan brush. You've seen me review these brushes, and I do like these Fumui fan brushes. So let's put a mat on here. Mat will give you an idea. These are pre-made mats. They might not be the perfect size, but it's enough to see what I've done. And you can see these rain clouds here, which look pretty cool. Distant mountain. A little bit of a lake. And that's it. I'm pretty happy with this one. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I will see you next time.